Hello and welcome to the seventh A Cat Has Nine Lives virtual detox conversation, which comes to you today on the 28th of June 2020. And remember, we're here to help you find your way from disempowerment and disease to a new place of empowerment and thrive at a distance wherever you may be. So if this is of interest, please get in touch. Right, today's subject, we're going to be talking about these things, mobile phones. Or, we go back a little while, these things, mobile phones. And just a brief look at this today is that well, the first time that I became concerned with mobile phones was some time ago. In fact, a long time ago. Back in 1997, I learnt that secondary insurance companies like Lloyd's would not cover people for health damage from mobile phones. And that immediately made me a little bit suspicious. Just a little bit suspicious. So it's from there that we come today to what we're looking at now. And what we are looking at now is, well, let's first of all talk about mobile phones. I'm not here to talk about 5G. That's a different subject. I'm here for the older-fashioned mobile phones. That's, well, they began with 1G way back in the 1990s when they were the size of a brick. Moved to 2G, that were very basic machines. Really, they were for phone calls and to send text messages. That was it. There was no online apps or internet connections or what smartphones are today, are really small computers that you can hold in your hand. They weren't like that. And then gradually we came to things like the BlackBerry, and we moved on to where we are today. So first of all, what is this? This is a radio receiver, effectively, and it works on the microwave, or the upper end of the microwave band. And let me explain what that is. When we look at light, light, electromagnetic energy is light. At one end of the spectrum you have ultraviolet, which is the rays of the sun. That's how you get sunburn. The next one along is microwave, and so on. But it's the microwave end that we're looking at today. A microwave energy, well, it actually came from radar. That radar operators began to realize that they got a heat source from the radar. So that then moved to microwave ovens, and then more, and then the mobile phone, which is actually a microwave system. And so this is a radio transmitter working on the microwave band. So what happens with this is, once you've turned these on, they are constantly emitting a signal to the nearest cell tower. That's why they're called cell phones, because they work on cells. And each cell tower in the good old days, which is most people now do not have 5G phones. It's only the most recent phones that are actually on 5G. If your phone is a little bit older than that, it will not be on 5G. In fact, mine is a 4G phone, but it's set to 3G, so the signal is a little less strong. But if you want 5G, you're going to have to pay for it as well. But just to remind you that 5G is not really about mobile phones. It's about the Internet of all things. And that's a completely different story, which we'll keep for another day. So these things are cell phones. And there is an antenna, a mast, every about 10 kilometers. And they serve that area, and of course each phone company has its own tower. and hence the name cell phone. So what this is doing is sending a signal to the cell tower, because each mobile phone company has a special identification number, an SID, and has a specific frequency upon which it works. So it's sending that signal to the cell tower, and the cell tower is then sending a signal back. Now, how often that happens depends on the country and the system. In America, it's about every 10th of a second. Here, it's not as frequent as that. So it's this signal. Now, the microwave signal is, or how these work, and this is the problem. The signal is not coherent. It's like this. It's a broken up signal. It's like that, and it's not. Therefore, that's what's doing the harm. When we look at microwave ovens, a microwave oven has probably working on 1,000 watts. This is working perhaps on 1 watt, so the power frequency is very much less. And of course they get hot. If you keep them to your ear for too long, they heat up. And that's not a good thing either. But it's the incoherent frequency that does the damage. And we're living in an age, in a mesh, in a sea, in an ocean of radio signals that we don't really know where they're taking us and what they're about. This is an area, a time, really, it's one great big experiment. Governments used to look after their citizens. Now governments seem to give most of their attention to companies and corporates, the money-making aspect of things, not to the people who actually put them in power, but to the people whose interests are best served by the government. And if you look at cities like Washington, Brussels, they're full of lobbyists. In fact, there are more lobbyists in Brussels than there are European members of Parliament. And they're there to put over their point of view so their industry can be supported by the politicians. And this is unfortunate. If we go back to 1986 in the United States, we see this with vaccines, that the vaccine companies were being sued so frequently by consumers who had poor effects from the vaccines, that the vaccine companies, it was costing them a fortune. So they went to government and said, look, we're not going to continue making vaccines because it's not worth our while unless you help us over this issue of being sued. And of course, why were they sued? Because the product was creating side effects, after effects. And so the government said, okay, all right, we'll take the bill for that and you get on and make the vaccines. Well, ever since then, really, the fox has been guarding the hen house. And so the interests of the industry have always come first. And when we look at the whole cell phone industry, well, when cell phones first appeared, way back in the early 1980s, they were for military use. They weren't there at that time for civilian use. And when they first appeared, the industry looked at all of this, and when they were then released into civilian use, they didn't think they would sell. There are now about 6 billion cell phones around the world. 6 billion. The world population is about 7.8 billion. So that's one heck of a lot of cell phones. And we're living in this sea, as I say, of energy that has been generated by these things. There has been very little there has been, this is not true, there has been research, there have been studies, there have been a lot of studies. Dr. Kyler was one of the earliest studies between 1993, his study was funded to the tune of $25 million. to study the effects of cell phones. And that was in the time when cell phones were like bricks. My first cell phone was huge. It was like this. It was like a brick. And he came up with some adverse findings. He said that the microwave energy affected DNA, and these things were possibly carcinogenic. Well, that was the end of it. They pulled his money. They stopped the study. There was another. It was actually an industry-funded study. There was another study in Switzerland, also in the 1990s, looking at microwave ovens, which was unfavourable to microwave ovens. And that was actually, once they launched, they published their findings. The findings were blocked by the Swiss court because the Appliance Federation blocked that. So a lot of this has been blocked. A lot of the dangers of this is not being made public. And so therefore, caveat emptor. Buyer beware. We are all responsible for ourselves. So let us now step into that place. And this should be mandatorily available to everybody. This should be publicized in the media, on the television, which of course is the media. Government should be putting out advisories on all of this. You shouldn't have to be looking for this information, but you have to, because the industry is huge and it's extremely profitable. So therefore, anything that stands in the way of the growth of this industry is discouraged by government and by the media. So once again, we are all responsible for our own health. That's bottom line. Don't expect someone else to be looking out for you. Now you need to educate yourself about these things. Don't take my word for it. Do your own research. But what I would like to share with you is a little bit of information of how you can actually take precautions with these things, which are, from the WHO, grade 2, possible, actually it was possible in 2011, carcinogenic, they could cause cancer. But in 2016, this was up to probable. So these can probably cause cancer. And of course, as you're if you're speaking on them and you're holding them to the ear, it's going to be the brain and this part of the face that's going to be exposed to the radiation. So we need to take care. We need to take precautions. We don't know what's going to happen here. So first of all, let's look at what you can do. First of all, I'm amazed. When I go out, I go for walks and everything. People are walking up in the jungle holding one of these. Now, in the earlier studies, the studies done to show the permissible range of radiation were done at 20 centimeters distant. The more recent ones were done at 5 millimeters. Now, that does not mean that. There must be a distance between you and the phone. So there are people walking up in the jungle holding one of these, so there is no distance. People put them in their pockets, in their trouser pockets, in the case of men, and women put them in their bras. Now, this is right on the body, and the most dangerous area is the antenna that emits the greatest amount of energy, and that's been put down here on the gonads or near the scrotum. No wonder male sperm counts are going up, and women are putting them here next to their breast so they can cause breast cancer. So please do not keep them like this. If you have a mobile phone and you carry it around with you, get a bag or something so you carry it off your body. And when you're looking at it, when you're scrolling through social media, because of course these are small computers now, you don't want to have it on your lap. Keep it separate. Keep it away from you. And also use a hands-free connection, headphones or earbuds or something when you're actually making calls. But try and keep calls to a minimum. Much better to send text messages. So that's one. Do not keep them on your body. Number two, people are taking them into their bedrooms at night and sleeping with them under the pillow. That is crazy. You're right within the electromagnetic frequency. Because remember, these things are broadcasting to the nearest cell tower on a very, very frequent basis. So then you think they're off, they're not off. So at night, keep them away from your head. Keep them outside the bedroom, preferably. Or if they're anywhere near you, make sure you put the phone on flight mode. Because when it's on flight mode, it stops broadcasting to the nearest cell tower. So it saves that radiation. And wherever you are, if the signal is weak, this thing has to work harder. So it's actually giving off more and more radiation at that time. So be careful about weak signals. If you're getting a weak signal, beware. And another thing is using them in cars. Cars are made of metal. This amplifies the radiation. Try not to use the phone in the car, because that is also dangerous. Going back to the night, it's a good idea also to turn off modems at night, because modems are also broadcasting. They're doing a similar thing. So turn those off at night. Very important, that one. And also don't forget headphones. It's by law in many countries that every phone has to come with a headset, earbuds or something like that, because this is a protective device. That's protecting, because once you place these to your ear, you're in the above the recommended, above the safe limits of radiation. So that is also really, really, really important. And if it's much better to use a laptop, because please don't put the laptop on your lap, but on a table. Keep them away, a tablet or something, or even a mainframe computer. Those have a lower energetic level, a lower level of emission than the cell phone itself. So that's also worth bearing in mind too. So be careful. Educate yourself. Look around. In my book, A Cat Has 9 Lives, which I recommend everybody to have a look at, I have a whole bunch of suggestions there about how to safeguard yourself, how you keep yourself safe from the radiation. Spend less time. People spend most of their day on this. Just imagine the amount of radiation. And also when it comes to the effects of radiation, it's quite slow acting. No one really knows how long this is all going to take. Now, another really important one is don't use the phone or look through your emails or scroll through Facebook while you're eating. Now, this is a great temptation, but the radiation affects your digestion. It stops you digesting properly. It affects your adrenal glands. This is a stressor and can lead to adrenal exhaustion. The symptoms of which are many, but low body temperature is one of them. The other one, poor digestion, poor sleep. There are many. It's a whole topic that one day I want to look into on these live broadcasts. But don't sit there and use your phone while you're eating. Put it to one side. And as I say, frequent cell phone usage, and that it doesn't mean nowadays we're not talking about telephone calls. We're talking about scrolling through the internet on your phone. Increases stress levels, stresses the adrenals, increases cortisol levels. So it is a stressor. And using the phone and the blue light and so on before you go to bed is guaranteed to interfere with your sleep. And the next one is really, really important. And don't let children use them. Children are 4 times more susceptible to the effects of this than adults. Their heads are smaller and the effect is much, much greater. And I see people giving children cell phones to play with and to amuse themselves. Well, don't. Or if you're going to do that, make sure that the thing is on airplane mode. So there is no signal going out to the towers. That's really important. And as I say, switch this to airplane mode every night before you go to bed. Keep it off. You don't need it on. And turn off the modem. That's also important. And finally, really, and this is the important thing, is you need to protect yourself. And we're now making this. This is called orgonite. Orgonite is we call these orgonite stress busters. Orgonite is the brainchild of Wilhelm Reich, and Wilhelm Reich was a contemporary of Sigmund Freud. He in fact worked with Freud in Vienna, but they fell out and they went their own separate ways. And Reich eventually left Vienna, went to Norway, worked in the University of Oslo, I think it was, before going to America. And when he went to America, he changed his direction, although still a doctor, because he was an MD. I think we've lost the signal, I'm not sure. I don't know if this has come back or not. I think it might have done. I'm not sure. Okay, I think it's back. I apologize for that. I don't know what happened there, but this is the second Sunday at this time that we seem to have lost a signal. So Reich started to experiment into biophysics, and he's talked about some form of energy. Now, electromagnetic... I don't know what's happening. I'm sorry about this. Whether we've lost this connection or we have to remake this video, I don't know. We'll see in a minute. And Reich then, orgone energy, electromagnetic energy, he said it was life-giving energy similar to chi, prana, whatever, your mana in Hawaii. And this gave off a very powerful signal. Now, when you're dealing with energy, like the energy from a cell phone, as far as Reich is concerned, that energy is discordant, it's erratic, it's damaging. So it changes from being something positive to something negative. And that's what does the damage. That's what does the harm. So orgonite, which is a mixture of organic and inorganic compounds. Metal, because you see this is made up of aluminium chips. Metal deflects energy, and organic, and this is fiberglass, this is polyester resin, organic material absorbs it. So there's an interconnection like this. And so what happens is that this doesn't protect you from EMFs, but it changes the energy from a negative DOR to something that is harmless. So it doesn't affect the body. We're now making these, and I'm trying to, the cost of these I'm trying to keep as inexpensive as possible. So if you're interested in this, I'm very happy to come round, if you're local, to come round to talk to you about it, to show you what it does, how it does it, and how you can protect your house, the electrical inputs of your house with these. So just send me a message. If you're not here, well, when the post begins, which might be soon, we will find a way of getting them to you. But right now, that's the story. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope you found this information useful. It's information that should be broadcast everywhere, everywhere. Everybody should know about this. And remember, we haven't even come to 5G, and that's a different story, because 5G isn't about telephones. 5G is about the Internet of Things. It's about joining everything up into some great artificial intelligence web. It's a very different story. So right now I'll say bye-bye for now. Thanks for joining, and talk to you again soon. And so, bye-bye.